Hey, what's up, fillies and fillers? Got this off of Facebook Marketplace. This is a central pneumatic air compressor, 100 psi maximum with a 3-gallon tank, oilless. I don't know what oilless is supposed to mean. Surely they don't mean oilless motor. Anyway, for $5, non-working. The motor actually does work, but it will not pump up air. So that, we've had experience with that symptom before. I will put a link up here if you want to check out the recent video we did on another air compressor that we did get going, and come to find out the intake passage was clogged. So we're going to look for that to possibly be the case, and maybe, again, some of the other valves to possibly be the culprit as well. So let's plug it in. I'll show you what it's doing. Runs, but will not build any air. Does have a little bit of air in it there. Maybe it's building some air. Let me... Okay. It is building a little bit of air, but not enough to really register. That is provided this is not an issue. It's possible that the gauge is a problem. There's an outside chance that the gauge just is malfunctioning and it will go ahead and build air, but I don't want to test that theory because I don't want to burn up the motor trying to pump it if there's no intake. So let's go ahead and take the screws out. Looks like we got 1, 2 screws there, 2 screws here, and a couple of handle screws. Let's go ahead and get those screws out. We'll get this top off and see what's up with it. By the way, this is a model 95275, in case you're wondering. It still even has the little tag here for the startup guide. Talks about draining the tank and all that stuff. Quick attach coupler, typical setup. It would be nice if there was an accessible air filter or something on it somewhere, but there isn't. What's funny about this too is it says do not remove this cover or adjust internal components. If there's an air filter, it would have to be under this cover, so I don't know why they wouldn't want you to clean the air filter, at least periodically. I guess they just intend for you to throw the thing away, just like everything else that comes from China these days. And we'll have our Chinese slaves build us another one, right? Except we're the real slaves in the end. All the manufacturing capability is headed to all of our, what could potentially be our mortal enemies. Which is probably a bad idea in the long run, wouldn't you say? I mean, can you imagine if the lead up to World War II, if we did not have the capability to manufacture all of our own stuff for the war effort? Could you imagine? Back then we had so much manufacturing in this country that they were able to change over, things like automotive manufacturing to make, tanks or airplanes or whatever, But now, I'm not confident we would have that same capability. Anyway, okay, so what do we have? We've got a motor, obviously. Here's our switch wiring. Where is the intake? So where does the air come in to this unit? Here's the, hey, look at this little puny thing. This is the fan that will spin and cool the motor as it turns. Power cord comes in here. The terminals come here. We do have a ground cable that goes down to the tank. We've got another ground cable here that attaches this little bracket of the motor mount to the tank as well, to ground all of that. And we got a big helicopter. Let's see what we got. What kind of equipment we got here. News, maybe. I'll tell you what, one thing I've noticed, we're pretty near Fort Knox here, in Louisville, and you know, they will occasionally run exercises and stuff, but I've noticed a lot more activity here lately. Sometimes in the middle of the night, they'll be moving heavy equipment around or something, and man, they'll have these big Chinooks and stuff that will sometimes fly overhead and just, I mean, rattle the entire house. But anyway, not to give away all of our state secrets or anything, but it seems like something is definitely afoot. The warmongers are on the war path, but you know, that's how they do. Steal our elections and then get us into a war we never wanted to be in the first place, and then have the media lie to us all and make us feel like we're alone if we disagree, when we're not, when the vast majority of Americans don't want this crap. But anyway, rant over. Here is the head where all the pressure occurs, but I'm wondering where the intake is. Is it part of this? Is it down underneath here? I'll tell you what, let's remove this little head cover, and we'll see maybe if it is the what you call it, the gasket. Could be the head gasket is blown. That's another possibility. But I'm not sure. Is it this? Maybe it's this whole thing around here, or it could be that there's just something I'm missing. But I don't see where the air comes in. I was going to say there's a rectifier over here. You can see, and there's like a line capacitor or something there too on a little board where the power comes in. So if you're having problems with your motor starting, maybe check what's coming off the rectifier and see that the motor is getting proper voltage. There's also a little valve right here that looks like it is, it's like a little actuator, solenoid, maybe. This is a little solenoid valve. Isn't that what that looks like to you? A little solenoid. So when it's electrified, it will allow the air in, and then when you turn it in the off position, it will stop. It will actuate, and no air can escape. As I'm editing here, it occurs to me that might actually be a little switch that will activate whenever this thing reaches a certain PSI level, and also reactivate whenever it drops below a certain PSI, because this thing is set to automatically turn off when the thing pumps up to 100 PSI or so, and then it will turn back on once it dips down below about 85 or so. So it will automate, and that looks to me like that might be the only way that gets done. So it's sort of taken the place of the larger pressure switches that we find in the larger machines. I think that's how they've got this one set up, but I'm just wondering how in the hell they're getting air in, because I just don't see an intake. Unless it's under here hidden. It's got to be under there hidden. Yeah, I spent $5 on this thing, and I drove, I don't know, it was about 10 minutes away or something like that by car, so I did have a little driving in it, and $5, but for $5, I mean, the video will be worth that, just to know what's wrong with it, you know. And it looks like this head right here, I was thinking was 2 pieces, but it looks like maybe it's all 1 piece. Looks like maybe I have to take this all off. I think I do. I think I have to take this off. It feels great out here right now, but I think it might start raining, so we might have to end up moving this operation. But let's see. What do we got there? Maybe a 10 or 11 millimeter? No, it's probably a 12. Yep, it's 12. Alright. Oh, what did I do? Oh, shit. That's the piston right there. I think or is that, that's just maybe a diaphragm. Alright. Okay. There's a little bit of rubber right there that's kind of messed up. It says oilless. I can't believe that this wouldn't take oil. I mean, you gotta be kidding me. How can it not take oil? Is it just that the throw is so shallow? And again, where's it getting intake? Where's it getting air from? There's got to be a reed valve or something inside of this piece. Okay, the pressure builds here, and it's got to get to here somehow. How is it doing it though? Is that a valve right there? That's probably a valve in there. Little metal. That's probably a valve right in there. I tell you what, let me I mean, it's got to be a valve. How else does the air get into this cavity? See, there's a raised bit right here, and it goes back to this point, but there's nothing there. The only point of departure on this whole thing is right there, and there's no obvious way in for air. That's a bit of a conundrum. Yeah, there's no oil at all. There is no oil at all on this. I think that's a reed valve right there, isn't it? Yep, sure is. Look, that's a reed valve right there on top of this little piston. Can you see it? So air can come this way, so it's getting into this cavity underneath somehow, basically through the motor. There's no filter, there's no air filter. It's just, I think they are relying on this whole housing to kind of just keep dust out, and they're not even bothering. I mean, there's dust in here inside the motor that I can just kind of clean out right now, but there's no oil really to speak of. There might have been a little bit of might have been a little bit of grease there, but it didn't seem like it. Around the edge here, there's a bit of rubber, which is like a rubber gasket / O-ring. You know, it's like a piston ring, basically. Like in a gas engine, it would be there to create compression and also to keep oil behind it. In this case, there's no oil, so it's just maintaining the pressure. Okay, now let's see if we can get some air to go into here, because that's... Oh, okay. Well, that answers that question. Okay, so I blew some air there, and this gasket came out, and also this tipped sideways. So definitely that's a reed valve, and we cannot let that be destroyed. So be very, very careful. So that is exactly what that is. See their little reed? It's, you know, it's kind of like on a harmonica or something, really. And it is coming up, and the air passage is free. However, we've got little bits, little chunks of gasket here, and I'm just wondering if maybe we're getting, if that was part of the problem, like it wasn't sealing. I probably even have an O-ring, a couple of O-rings that would replace those gaskets. Yeah, that's one way of getting it out, blow it out. Let me see if I've got an O-ring that's that size. Alright, so I think I found the problem. So this ring is really deteriorated. I don't know if you can tell it, but you can kind of see it right there, how frayed it is and how uneven it is. I do have one that's the same dimension roughly, but it's really probably too thick. In the wrong shape. I mean, you can see this one. This one's more circular, and this one I think is supposed to be flat. That's the closest thing I got, and I doubt that's going to work. You see how the reed valve works. See it coming up? So I've cleaned this gasket off. This gasket's in good shape. So we'll get that one back in there. Wow, I'm blowing. Yeah, it's this gasket right here that's the problem. And oh yeah, this O-ring is just, that's gonna be way too big, I'm sure. It's gotta be way too big. I don't think that'll even fit back on there, will it? I might be able to get that back on there because it is just pressed. There's an outside possibility that might work. I just want to make sure the tension seems pretty equal, and it does. So let's just fire it up, back up again real quick and see if it pumps. See if the air pressure goes up. Okay, that is taking quite a while, but we are actually pumping up now. So that was a problem. Definitely a contributing factor, if not the factor. Probably I'm gonna clamp down on these bolts just a little bit more. Now that it's been running a second, it's you know, pretty hot on the head. The other thing I don't want to do is run it for too long because you don't want to overheat it, because I don't have this shroud on here. This shroud should help direct air over this, but it's a pretty cool day, so I don't think that's going to be a problem right now, but I'll just give it a break a second before we go any further. Okay, turn that off for a second. We've gotten up to 80 psi, and this thing, the maximum is 100. See how long this holds air. Then I'll come back and see if I can get all the way up to 100. If I can get all the way up to 100, we'll try to attach some tools to it and see if we can do some stuff, maybe air up some tires. Okay, so it's been about probably over half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, and we're back with this thing, and it has not moved. We are still sitting pretty on 80 psi. So let's go ahead and see if we can pump it all the way up to the maximum of 100. Alright, it's kind of starting to sound a little funny, so I'm not going to tempt fate. We are at 90. If I'm not going to keep pushing it to the point where it, you know, just breaks. Now, obviously, this isn't going to run any real, you know, demanding tools or anything like that, but it will air up some tires. You know, it's something you can put air in and take with you in case you're afraid of getting a flat tire in the back country or something. You know, you'll have a tank full of air. You know, it's also good for some maybe little things. This isn't for heavy duty, obviously, but not sure what happened there. The tone of the thing changed. I'm wondering if that O-ring blew just then. Oh yeah, it's destroyed. It's already destroyed, look. Okay. So it basically burned it up and destroyed it. Alright, so it's been a little bit. It's been a couple days. I ordered some gaskets for the head for this compressor, and they have come in. I think I got these on Amazon, if I remember correctly, and they were like $6 or something for, I'm thinking it was 10 of them. These are silicone, which is high heat, temperature resistant. They will operate up to about 250, I think it's 250 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere in there, which I think is going to be within spec for this head, and that's the best thing to use for this purpose. So let's see if they even fit. Make sure my measurements were good. So there's that one. It does seem a bit tall. Okay, I had a choice. There were some sellers that were selling 2.5 millimeter thickness, and there were some that were claiming 2 millimeter thicknesses. I went and opted for the 2.5 millimeter thickness over the 2 millimeter because I thought that's going to give me just a little bit of extra on top, and not too much, but hopefully enough where it will seal a little better. So we've got both those seals in there now. Let's see if we can get this back together and working. Dare I go 100? Oh, wait a minute. That did shut itself off. I didn't have to shut that off. So how did that happen? Okay, that's interesting. There must be some kind of there must be an electronic switch that I do not see. We've already dropped back down to about 95 PSI though. So, you know, we do have some kind of leak somewhere. Yeah, it's leaking just a tiny bit from the head. I mean, I can hear it. Well, it's leaked back down to 90, but you know what? I'm going to call this a victory because this is performing at least better than it has at any point yet. So I'm actually going to keep an eye on it over the next little while, and I'll see how quickly it leaks down. It's not that quickly leaking, so you know, this would still be a useful compressor for a lot of applications. So it's not perfect, but I think I'm going to leave well enough alone right there. So that'll do it for this one. I'm going to move this on to somebody else who might be able to use it. I have no need for it. I've got a couple compressors already, so we'll sell this on, and I'd say for what I've got in it, which is about $11 overall, $5 to buy it, and then I've got another $6 in gaskets, and I've got some extra gaskets too for future projects out of that deal. So probably really overall I've got $7 in it plus a little bit of gas. So that'll do it for this one. If you enjoyed it, hit subscribe, and we'll see y'all later.